What's up, guys? Today's video is something I'm very passionate about. It's because it's about real estate investment. It's something that I've been doing since my early 20s. You know, anytime you're getting some information from someone, you want to know, is this something that they've done themselves? And I got to tell you, I've done dozens of real estate transactions personally. And in addition to it, I've actually brokered loans for hundreds of real estate transactions. So I think that I'm well qualified to give you this information. And I wanted to give you some highlights as to, what makes a good real estate investment. What is actually real estate investments? Basically, the concept of you buying real estate, right, that's able to appreciate over time and generate another stream of income for you. And so technically speaking, no matter how hard we work, and we could work for the rest of our lives, unless we invest our money in different, vehicles, real estate being one of them, of course, then typically it becomes a lot more difficult to become wealthier, right? And so for me, I found that real estate has been great simply because it's something that's tangible and it's something that has gone up in value substantially over the past 20 years, right? It keeps your money safe simply because as we've gone through inflation, the cost of real estate only gone up. Whereas if you had money parked in the bank, likely the value of it would only decrease, right? So there's so many reasons why I love real estate, but I find that on the internet, especially like, the TikToks and Instagrams and all that, oftentimes there's a lot of messages that are lost in translation because it appears that anyone who could afford to get into real estate could all of a sudden become a multimillionaire. And I can assure you that that's far from the truth, because from my experience, building wealth in real estate has really taken a very long time. To be able to go out today and buy a piece of real estate, especially I'm in Los Angeles, California, it would be very difficult unless you put down a substantial down payment to get a substantial return and even cash flow on the property. Meaning that, if you're coming in to say an $800,000 or $1 million house and you're putting down, as an example, 20%, then you got yourself about an $800,000 mortgage. So I can assure you that the payment, just the basic payment on something that's probably going to be around $4,500, and then you put in property taxes and insurance, you're probably closer to around $5,500, if not more. So then at that point, you'd probably lose money every single month, right? So you just bought this property for like $1 million and you're trying to rent it out by putting down 20%. It's not gonna happen. So how do you, in fact, make money in real estate if that's not how you do it? Well, the thing is this, number one, there's certain areas where it would be very difficult for you to buy in simply because the values are so high and the amount of rents that the property can spit out every single month, it's just not gonna cover it unless you put down a significant down payment. So if I was going to invest my money right now and I was starting out, I probably wouldn't look to buy real estate in Los Angeles just because it's just way too expensive. I would look at other areas where I could actually buy a house somewhere around maybe $500,000, and even that's expensive, where I could put down 20-30% and I could at least break even, if not cash flow on my money. So that's tip number one. Make sure that when you're buying real estate, you're not losing money every single month, just like any other investment. I've dealt with so many investors, they're like, yeah, you know what, I really think this property is going to go up in value and I'm willing to take a chance and lose money every single month. I think that's a mistake. I would personally get into a deal that doesn't lose money every single month. Now, although that's tip number one, I want you to take something else into consideration. I've had a property actually just a month or two ago where I purchased the property back in 2012, I believe, 12 or 13, and I paid about $130,000 for it. Now today, that same property is worth over $500,000, and you might think that is tremendous. And when you're looking at it in terms of an investment opportunity, sure, it has a lot of equity in it. However, when the tenant moved out a couple months ago, the property was not in good condition. And let me tell you, it's very challenging to get the keys from a tenant, although you do have deposits on file, and that's fine. Deposits are good for normal wear and tear. But if the place needs a facelift, you're gonna have to put your hand in your pocket and get your wallet out and write a check. And I can tell you that just to uplift that property cost me about $15,000. And so now you're in a position where you might cash flow but do you cash flow enough to where a tenant moves out and you potentially have to put money back in the property? So tip number 2 is the fact that even though you're breaking even, and you might say, yeah, I'm not losing money. That's actually incorrect, because every year you find that you're going to spend somewhere between $3,000 to $4,000 on that property. Things are going to come up, The AC is going to break, the stove is going to need to be replaced, floor is going to need to be replaced, there's going to be a leak in the shower. It really depends on whether this is a part of an association or not, all right? And that could get really tricky. Just had one of those too, where there's a water line and the association is saying, you know what, it's your water line. And we're like, no, it's not. It's a common water line that is clogged, and now the AC cannot drain, and so it stops, right? So what am I supposed to do? Snake a line along a whole building when the HOA doesn't want to participate? Do you see what I mean? So if you're going to take $3,000, $4,000 and include it in the amount of money that, collectively you're going to pay over 12 months. So let's start with the basics. PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Okay, that's what you pay on a property. And if you have HOA, you're going to have to include HOA on that. If you have flood insurance, you need to include flood insurance. If you have mellow roofs, which is a builder bond, you need to add that. That's your all-in. You multiply that times 12. That's what you're paying annually, right, on the property. Now add another $3,000, $4,000, and that's minimum. Okay, divide that by 12 and take a look at the rental income. If the rental income cannot cover that, at least that, you shouldn't buy the property, because you're going to lose money every single month. All right. Now keep this in mind. If you only have a passive stream of income, meaning you're only a real estate investor, then you're going to be in a very tight position if the property needs either a facelift or repairs. You got to make sure you have an active stream of income. So if you're going to start investing in real estate, make sure you have both an active and a passive stream of income, because if you're only counting on the rental income, you might find yourself in a really big problem. That was tip number 2. Tip number 3 is actually, in my opinion, probably the most important tip, and that's for any real estate investor, because real estate investors often think that, they need to analyze the property as to what they're going to do to it at the get-go to make money. But the truth of the matter is, as you enter the transaction, there's already money on the table. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. I started in real estate back in 1999, so that was 24 years ago. And I quickly learned that even if you know nothing about real estate, just having your real estate license allows you to walk into the transaction and earn a commission. So basically, you're getting paid to buy a property. That's incredible, right? And so imagine if you're a real estate investor and you don't have a real estate license, how much money you're losing by simply not getting paid a transaction fee when you purchase the property, a commission. And you know what? Most of the time, it's pretty substantial. It's anywhere between 2 to 3%. And if you're buying a property even for $400,000, that's $12,000. Buy a property for $600,000, that's $18,000 just to buy the property. Now you might be thinking, do I get to keep 100% of that money? No, because if you're not a broker and you don't own your own company, then typically you have a split, some kind of a split, but you're like, yeah, but I don't want to be a real estate agent. You don't have to be. You can hang your license with a broker shop. When it's time to do a transaction, there are transaction coordinators that would be available to do all your paperwork. So technically, you don't really have to know much, except go through the process a couple times, either by yourself or with a senior agent, which is probably a better idea, and you'd learn how to do it. And over time, you would save so much money, because not only would you be getting a check every single time you buy a property, but what happens when you sell a property? If you're in a position where you have to pay every single time you sell a property, you're paying 2.5% to 3% every single time it's time to sell a property. If you have a license, then you could actually list that property yourself, and so you could bypass the listing commission and only have to pay the selling commission. Does that make sense? Because there's two parties in the transaction. There's the listing agent and the selling agent. So when you're selling the property, you have to pay both of them, right? Because when you're buying it, you could use any agent you want and they get paid the commission. I'm telling you, get the real estate license, hang it with a broker, you get the real estate commission. When it's time to sell the property, instead of having to pay two parties, you only have to pay the selling agent, not the listing agent, because your company or the company that you work with could be the listing agent. Now you might, again, not be 100% commission here, where you're getting 100% of, there may be some kind of a fee, but it won't be 100%. Maybe it would be, 30% of the fee. You're still going to save a lot of money. So in the long run, I think this is my biggest tip, is to be able to simply hang your real estate license and use a transaction coordinator to be able to help you save a ton of money if you're going to do a lot of real estate investments, okay? There's a lot of reasons why you would want to own real estate, because transacting is just going to get you that 2 or 3% commission, and it's very difficult. It's extremely saturated. The way you really make money in real estate is by owning the real estate, and not only owning the real estate, but owning the real estate for an extended period of time. I may try to flip a house today, and I'm probably not going to make a whole lot of money on it, because coming in and out of a transaction typically is expensive. Even as a broker, it's expensive, because think about it. If I have to pay closing fees coming into the transaction, which are probably 2%, and then I need to get out of the transaction as a broker, and I need to pay 2.5% to the selling agent, another percent for closing costs. That's 3.5% plus about another, 1.5 or 2%. So I'm paying 5% to come in and out of a transaction. So you got to make a pretty substantial profit in a transaction to be able to even just flip a house. Whereas if you can save a down payment and buy a property that cash flows, and then just hold on to it over time, because real estate over time appreciates. And so historically it's about 5%. And over the past several years, of course, it's been a lot more. It's been as high as almost 20%, but you look at 5% as a benchmark, and then over time, not only does the real estate go up in value, so you get more equity, and you can refinance to a better loan, but you also get a lot more equity in the deal. Okay, and this is how you start growing your net worth. All right. So if you have any questions about any of that, drop them in the comments below. We covered a lot of different things. I want to cover more with you. I'm going to make more of these videos for you. But if you enjoy the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you on the next video.